Send down a thank you, please.
Hello everyone and welcome to Head to Head, an Open Dialogus production. And tonight it's an unusual one because it's head to heads. And I'm very pleased I've got an interesting group of friends with me tonight who are going to talk about a range of subjects. We're going to start off with a conversation about business, but I have a feeling with the people who are online tonight, it's going to go all over the place. So first of all, let's take the introductions and first of all, I want to say we're going to bear with Charmaine a little bit because she's having some Wi-Fi issues, but I think it'll be okay. So first of all, Charmaine Burton, she's a radio host from Birmingham. She's a political commentator, and she's someone who's interviewed me many times. She's got a lot of really interesting views, so it's going to be great to have Charmaine on the show. Then we've got Kim Rose. He's a gold and jewellery dealer, and amongst many other things, an entrepreneur, I think it's fair to call Kim. He might well be described as Arthur Daly, but I think there's probably more to the man than that, and we'll get talking more about that. And the last time me and Kim met, it wasn't in such friendly circumstances. We were punching each other, but we can talk about that as we go along.
Yeah, and you didn't hold back, Bill.
Well, I ran out of breath. and last but not least, Jaz Khunkun, financial expert from Wolverhampton, and someone I've known for many, many years, who's got a lot of interesting views. So, guys, before we get into the conversation as a rule, just really, perhaps if you can give us a couple of minutes about who you are, what you do, and so because people from all around the world tend to watch this show, and not everyone's going to know who you are. So, can we set the ball rolling with Jaz? Give us a couple of minutes about yourself, mate.
Yeah, sure. Jaz Khunkun. I work for a company called Works Consultancy that we set up roughly about 3 years ago now. For my sins, my background is that I am an ex sort of corporate banker, so very, very popular, as you would imagine. So I worked 12 years for NatWest. I did 6 years at HSBC and then 12 years at Barclays. So I nearly got all the main badges apart from Lloyd's. The last sort of 12 years I worked at Barclays, I looked after manufacturing companies, sort of ranging from 2 to 100 million turnover. And we looked after all their facilities and everything to do with businesses. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was able to see good times and bad times and learn how businesses cope with both of those sort of periods. I then also spent 4 years with Barclays mid to large corporate real estate, where we did a lot of work in property, so both residential and commercial developments and residential and commercial investments. And roughly about 3 years ago, as I say, I left to form my own consultancy, working with ex-customers and a whole host of other people, really acting as a sort of non-executive director, mostly focusing obviously on the financial side with my background. And so I've ended up with about 5 or 6 clients that I look after their sort of financial side, but get involved in all sorts, from HR to manufacturing and to property, which is the bulk of what I sort of try and do. So very varied. No one day is the same, fortunately, and it's an interesting time out there at the moment with COVID and everything else that's going on in the business world.
Okay, thanks, Jaz. Kim, do you want to give us a little bit of a couple of minutes about yourself, mate?
Yeah, my name's Kim Rose. I've failed miserably to try and be an MP about 6 times. I mean, my reason for standing has always been community based, because I care about my community. From the place I was brought up in, I just don't want to see any homeless on the streets, and which I want to talk about later on, because I've got a fantastic idea which I think would benefit Birmingham and Wolverhampton and Southampton, which we can talk about later. But at the moment I'm working on, we've got 4 shops, and we're actually I detest pawnbrokers and what they charge in interest rates. So, you know, because the high interest rates they charge, what chance, we don't look after the people at the bottom of the chain, and what chance has anyone got? Because the people at the top of the ship are fine, but if you don't look after the people in the bottom of the ship, then the ship will sink. You know, so what we're bringing out, what we're planning, as soon as COVID is over, we're just charging £1 interest for £100 it's borrowed. And that's absolutely ridiculously low rates. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to take people away from loan sharks, take people away from pawnbrokers, and try and create a level playing field, and try and encourage a lot of our young people to be entrepreneurs, and give them as much help as possible. So, I mean, basically, really, at my age now, because I'm nearly 64, it's really time to give as much back as I can before I leave this planet.
Okay, great stuff. And Charmaine, a little bit about yourself. So we've got the full pack and we know what everyone's about.
Hi all. As you can see, it says at different angles, but there's only one at. But anyway, so my name's Charmaine Burton, and I'm a political broadcaster on a community radio station called New Style Radio based in Birmingham. My spiel about my show is that it's politics, politics, politics with a dash of current and a twist of music to help the politics go down. So I've been doing my show for 10 years. I built it from scratch against all the odds, or those who didn't think that a political show targeting those who would, you know, be, I guess, deemed as not engaging or not interested in politics. And myself and the community have proved everybody wrong, and the show is quite successful. And we interview from senior politicians all the way to community leaders and community members, because I believe that everybody's voice should be heard. I believe that sometimes we may not agree, but at least we understand each other. And that's kind of the foundation for the show, a safe platform for serious, transparent and honest dialogue. And that's me.
Yep, and having been on the show quite a few times over the years myself, I can vouch for it being all of those things. And it also comes from the Sir Vivian Richards studio, which is always a massive boost for me, being the cricket fan that I am. Right, let's get underway. The last 12 months have been horrendous for many, many reasons, and not least because of the business environment that I think we've had to work in. There are obviously knock-on effects of lockdown. At this point, not necessarily discussing the merits of whether it was right or wrong, but there are knock-on effects not just for business, but for employment and for the community as a whole, and for those at the bottom of the tree, perhaps even more than most. Jaz, as you've been involved, as you say, in the running intimately of a few businesses during that period, what are your observations about the last 12 months and how businesses have adapted and the challenges they've faced?
Well, I think so. I can only speak from my perspective in the businesses that I've dealt with. In terms of the manufacturing businesses I've dealt with, we employ the best part of 250 odd people in the Black Country area. We closed down both factories for a period of time. One was closed for the best part of 2 months. The other one was closed for a shorter period, and we kept on a skeleton staff to keep the machinery and equipment going. So the businesses had to adapt very quickly. One of the things that we did very early doors was focus on cash, making sure that we got enough money to pay the employees and keep the wheels turning. So it was a very quick and sort of diverse actions that we had to take in order to make sure that we maintained the businesses and the businesses actually survived through the period. I've got to say that the furlough assistance was particularly good, and it particularly helped those companies. So from that point of view, and that's still helping those companies, although now out of those 200 plus employees, we've only probably got one on furlough. So from that perspective, it's quite good. Both of those companies are involved in, one's involved in recycling, and the other one is involved in the automotive industry in terms of metal spraying and powder coating. So that gives you an indication that the industries behind them, i.e. the automotive industry and the people that produce the material that we use in the one company, are actually pretty active. So both companies now, in terms of turnover, are probably back up to where we were pre-COVID. So that sort of gives you an idea of where the manufacturing sort of side of things is. In terms of property, the property companies I work with who, number one, develop both residential and commercial sites, they've suffered but in a different way. So we've had contractors that have unfortunately gone bump, which has left jobs sort of halfway or not completed. And we've also had issues where, you know, commercial clients in particular haven't paid their rent and are simply flatly refusing to pay their rent. So that's been really interesting. Obviously, the government again have put processes in place where we can't simply evict people because they're not paying their rent, etc., which is fantastic because it protects those individuals, particularly on the residential side. And interestingly, you know, the collections on the residential side have been absolutely fine. So people have been paying their rent where they can. Obviously, furloughs help with that. And interestingly, the smaller businesses, your smaller businesses in the high street, your more sole traders, your one-man bands, they've all paid. But the bigger companies haven't, even though where we know they probably could. So it's been an interesting dynamic. Fortunately, the business that I work with, we're quite quick to act on these things. So it's not been too bad. But I think that without the government support in terms of furlough, without the government support in terms of the civil loans and the bounce back loans, it would have been very, very difficult. What concerns me about the civil and bounce back loans is how many of those loans are actually going to get repaid. Because there was an awful lot, I think, of people that grab those loans as quickly as they can or could. And when it comes to repaying them 12 months' time after they've taken those loans out, that's when we need to sort of look at it again. Because, you know, certainly if you take the hospitality sector, for example, the companies that took out civil loans, you know, sort of 12 months ago are still not open. They've had no trade for 12 months. So how are they suddenly going to service those loans where the repayments are now becoming due? So those sort of things we need to take into account.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. I'd be keen to hear what Charmaine's views are as well on that.
Yeah, well, I will go to Charmaine now. But I mean, that's great because you've opened up a few things that we'll talk about as we go on, like furlough and whether or not people retain their jobs when they come back from it, and the repayment of these billions of pounds of loans, which I certainly know of quite a few businesses that have taken them out and then almost immediately gone out of business, so they don't have to pay them back. But we'll talk about it as we go along. Charmaine, your views on the environment we've had to live in over the last 12 months, the impact of the sort of damage to business on the employment, and I guess being a community-focused person yourself, how it's impacted on the people themselves who've had to deal with that.
I think there's been a mixed impact. So there are some that have been able to adapt and change and move forward in this new climate in different ways in which they do their business, or add different streams to their business, which has enabled them to survive and think more creatively and differently in this climate. However, there are the ones in the more traditional kind of industries that have suffered severely. And like Jaz was saying, it's the actual comeback. How do they come back? Will their clients come back to them? Have clients found different ways to achieve the same goals instead of going to those businesses? Like the moved, a lot more of us have moved to online as well, and how we buy, how we shop, how we search. So I think it's definitely a mixed bag. And in terms of some of the people that I've been speaking to in businesses, you've had some that cannot see a future and do not see themselves reopening. And then, like I've said, you've got others who have had to adapt and they're now thriving. However, on, I think, the employment side of it as well, there's a lot of fear. And will people actually be coming back from furlough, or have these companies or businesses and even organizations found new ways to cope without having the same level of employment that they did before? Do they need the same amount of staff? The ways in which we work now, will people actually be going back into the office if they don't need to? Are we going to be losing that human touch, those human interactions? And the safety of what we had before we went into this whole COVID situation is of real concern to many people, and especially those who are that little bit older, who would be coming to their retirement. Are they going to be forced into early retirement? Are they going to be, you know, left out because they haven't adapted to the new ways in which we're working as quickly as maybe some of the younger generations? So there is really a mixed bag, but I think generally what I pick up, there is a lot of fear. We are living in a climate of fear, which is making people make, you know, unnecessary decisions through that fear. And because there isn't that much clarity on where we're going to be going from here, or if we will be coming out in June, what's going to happen in winter again, we're just living in uncertainty and a fearful climate, which I think makes it difficult to really make long-term or even short-term decisions for employees and the employer.
Yeah, a lot of interesting points there. And Kim, moving on to you, maybe you can give us your view on it, but also maybe factor in a little bit of what Charmaine was saying there about the changes, the evolution, if you like, that goes on within a business, and the, you know, when people go through a recession. I mean, I'm sure there's at least three of us in this discussion who can remember previous recessions. I think Charmaine's a little younger than us, but we can remember previous recessions where, you know, some people have gone into this. And then they've come out the other side and they've found themselves almost unemployable and needing to retrain. What's your take on the situation we're in?
Well, my take on it, Bill, quite frankly, I mean, I see lots of empty shops in a high street in Southampton, and you know, a forest can be burnt to a cinder, but you know, sooner or later, green shoots come through. Now, you know, with these shops, okay, a lot of these Debenhams and Top, all these bigger shops have all gone. But what a fantastic opportunity for young people to become entrepreneurs with help from, you know, the councils have got to just relax the rates. Don't charge them any business rates, say for 5 years. Let them get off the ground. Let them grow their businesses. Give them help to grow their businesses. They will then employ other people. It will reduce employment. You know, Napoleon once said, you know, we are a nation of shopkeepers. It's true, we are. You know, there's so many empty shops, and there's so many opportunities for young people now to take up the mantle and actually become business people. You know, they just need to be encouraged. They need to be helped. They need to be guided. And, you know, it's just a fantastic time for them. You know, when one door closes, another door opens. And I don't think we can look at anything with fear. You know, we've got to actually like just plow ahead, do what we can, and you know, we adapt, we swerve, we sidestep, we will survive. Most of us will survive because this is what we do in business. You know, nothing ever seems to go along. It's never a straight pond. It's never a still pond. You're always going to get waves. So when those waves come, we batten down, we adapt. I mean, I've never done online. I mean, look, this is my phone here. I don't know if you can see my phone. I've got a Nokia 6310. You know, I'm still using. You know,
you get that from a museum.
Wow.
and yeah, but you can play Snake with it, you know. So, and you know, I'm not into this high tech, but I've employed somebody now. He's a bit 17, 18, and you know, they're the ones to have. So he's putting my jewelry online. We're selling bits and pieces, and it's fascinating, you know. And it's something I wouldn't have done if it hadn't have been for what's happened in the last 12 months. You know, because all of a sudden we've produced the sales and it's ticking over nicely, and you know, it's keeping our heads above water. And I'm sure a lot of businesses have done the same. So I mean, at 64 years of age, I'm not looking at retiring. You know, we're just taking on another 2 shops now specifically for these loans, because I want to go to war with the pawnbrokers and try to produce decent rates for people rather than see them dragged down with high interest, especially loan sharks that go around the States and for what they charge, it's absolutely, it's dreadful. And you know, there's so many opportunities that we can actually do to encourage things. Take the market, Southampton market. It's always a German market, which I feel bad about always being a German market, because we've got a lot of people that I know in Southampton. They go back generations as market traders, and they can trade all year round up until about November. But then the Germans come along. They offered all sorts of money to Southampton City Council to get that German market. And this year, of course, the German market didn't happen, but all the local people, they all had market stalls, and they all thrived on the Christmas. And it was nice. It was lovely to see local people. There was a community feeling. There was a coming together. And I find, you know, I think what's happened out of this COVID, I think the best thing that's happened is we found kindness. You know, there's an awful lot of people that are actually kind and to others and willing to help others in whatever they want to do. So yes, I mean, you see the people going to university, the young people going to university, and they're all looking one day to have like great education, and then they're going to go for high paid jobs. So then, like, I think it was the Labour Party that brought out, you know, the Russell Group came along. So all of a sudden then, against their better judgment, they reinvented the double tier education, because one day all these big companies with not enough jobs around, they're going to go to the Russell Group to cherry pick the better the better students than some of the other universities. So okay, take a step back. Let's bring back apprenticeships. You know, because nowadays, I mean, I've got a builder at the moment. He's trying to finish off an extension that I'm trying to do at the shop, and it's costing me a fortune, you know, for what they charge daily. And you know, a lot of young people, they think it's all in IT. No, it isn't. You know, we still need plumbers, we still need electricians, we still need builders, and a lot of our young people should be encouraged to do that. And with these young shops, let our young people at these shops at a low rent, no business rates. Give them a chance. Give them a chance to grow, nurture them, and we will have the next Richard Bransons, and we'll have the next Top Shop, you know, eventually one day. You know, this is a fantastic time, and this is a fantastic opportunity to really step forward and encourage the young people in a new world.
Well, you raised some good points there, Kim. And by the way, that 17-year-old person helping you with their IT, perhaps you can get him to hold your phone because you've got your hand over part of your face, mate. So we don't want to obscure your handsome good looks. We want to avoid that. So reversing the order a bit, because I know Jaz will have a lot to say on this. So I'm going to go to Charmaine first, because there's a bounce back on some of the things you were saying about the feeling of fear and the environment of fear. Kim's got a really positive and upbeat attitude about it. He's got this feeling that this is an opportunity to rise from the ashes, so to speak, for entrepreneurs to really kick in, for young people to start making an impact. Does any of that feel any resonance to you, Charmaine? Do you sort of buy into what Kim's saying?
You know what? It's definitely true, but it's not true for everybody right now, and it might take some time for others to catch up. Because we also have to look that it's not even just this pandemic that we're in. We're also in the midst of Brexit as well. And so it's a twofold impact in the business world and in the world in the UK in general and Europe. So I think, you know, there are those who are just dealing with the pandemic and they have found other streams. It's going to be great for young people. But then we've got another generation who are not digital savvy, who are coming to their twilight years, who thought just a few more years and then I can just chill out, who are now having to think about, okay, where do we go from here? And then let's not forget, we have the impact of Brexit on the whole of the industry and how it's going to work there as well. So I agree with what, is it Kim? Kim is saying, but I also think, let's not forget, we've got Brexit on top of that, and we've also got the reality that everyday people who will be going into these shops or using our high streets again, how are they going to feel? As most of us now, even when I'm doing my walks in the morning, you know, I'm stopping or people are walking past. Going shopping can be a little bit stressful at times. So it's how are we? What will the new normal look like? Will we have that interaction and that trust just to walk past somebody how we did before?
Yeah, very interesting points. Jaz, coming to you, and I want you to throw in some thoughts about business rates when you address this. But you've got two very differing views on the outlook there. You've got Kim's super positivity, Charmaine tempering it down a little bit with some very sensible, I think, concerns about the new normal, and also the potential as well of Brexit. Those evil people who campaigned for Brexit all those years, we have to hold our hands up as well. So, I mean, where do you think, where do you lie on this? You've got positivity and caution. Where do you stand on it? And also throw in a bit about business rates and your thoughts.
I think the scary thing is that the truth probably lies somewhere in between the two. I think that for me, Charmaine's point around people being, either afraid to go out or afraid to go to the shops, or bearing in mind that people feel like that now, and yet it wasn't that long ago where we had the Eat Out to Help Out campaign, where the government were encouraging people to go out because it was now safe to go out, and then we've gone back the other way and there's new variants. And so I think at some point the press, the government, and all the people that influence, particularly our young people, Kim, need to put out some positivity, because I think that's what we don't get necessarily. They're so quick to jump on the doom and gloom. I think they're very quick to say, don't leave the house, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, be afraid of this, be afraid of that. I think that we need to encourage people, as Kim says, to be brave and to get out there and to challenge the status quo. There's an awful lot of talk around retail that it's all going online and everybody's shopping from home, etc., etc. Well, there are certain things that I like to do, that I like to go to the shop to do. I don't want to shop online, and I think there's an awful lot of people in that sense. So I think it's striking that balance between how can we send a positive message out to people, how can we encourage them to try new business ideas, to try new stuff, to approach other businesses that are out there already, to sort of try and get involved. And it's very difficult to do that, and temper that with the safety element and the aspects and the masks and all of the rest of it. So it's a very, very difficult sort of balance. In terms of business rates and in terms of retail, which is, I guess, what Kim's really referring to, and getting younger people into those shops, I think that without some sort of active campaign, either by the local councils or by the government, that's going to be really difficult. But that's what it needs, because we've got now, Wolverhampton is really, really quiet, and has been for a while. I popped into Merry Hill the other week, and that was definitely quiet, and there are lots of shops there closed. So I'm not sure how, because I'm not in that field, but how do we get the younger entrepreneurs? How do we get them out? How do we encourage them? Those are the questions that we need to ask. But the first and foremost is that they've got to feel safe to go out. So it's a real balance, and we're in a very delicate position here, because you've got a lot of young people. My daughter's 16. She's deciding now which career path to take, and that's got to be influenced by everything that's going on. So, we've got to be careful that we don't discourage the young generation, that we actually encourage them and that we point them in the right direction. So, I agree with Kim that there's a lot of opportunities out there, but it's a really, really delicate time. So I can sort of empathise with both sets of views, really.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting, really. I mean, there is a middle ground to be found. And Kim, while Charmaine, I think, has lost her connection temporarily, so you've got a bit of time on this one. Jaz has kind of thrown the ball back into your court to a degree there by saying, yes, it's all very well to say, yeah, we've got to be more positive and we've got to get people out there, but there needs to be action taken to encourage that. I mean, do you have any sort of feelings, thoughts, proposals on what should be done?
This is where, you've got the small business federations, you've got the council. They can have days where they can encourage young people to come to the Guildhall, and they can sit down and talk to mentors, talk to people, and what they'd like to do, their dreams, their ambition, because every young person that we see in one way or another is talented. They've all got a certain, every young person has got a talent. And, you know, and the best of it is, you know, if we encourage them to be able to earn their own money, to be able to be entrepreneurs, to do something they actually enjoy doing, because to go all through your life from 18 to years of age to pension, if you're stuck in a job that you don't like, then that's a hell of a lot of time of your life where you're going to be miserable. You know, let them do something they actually thrive on. That's something they actually enjoy doing, whether it's music or whether it's clothes, fashion, design, whatever really absolutely floats their boat and they really want to do, encourage them to do it. And so you could have these massive days where young people actually come to talk to mentors, to be able to guide them. And then, you know, we could look at the shops situation. There are so many shops all over the country that are empty. And it's a shame. Put the young people in these shops. The high streets will thrive. The young people will find their feet. People will come in to see them. It will create communities. It will create conversation. And even with the young people at the moment, a lot of them, you know, I know people that some young people, they're stuck in a tower block, 10 stories high, pigeonholed. And then we wonder, you know, why is there like trouble in the hood? Why would you get trouble with gangs? Because they've got to join a gang. Because if they don't join a gang, then they're on the other side and they're going to be a victim. So, you know, but if you can encourage these people to actually focus their energy into something positive, into a business, to actually channel in something where they can actually earn like really, really good money, and they can see the money coming in and doing something they enjoy. You know, isn't that the way forward? And why can't the council have guild halls in I'm sure you've got a guild hall in Wolverhampton, I don't know, but in Birmingham, I'm sure you have, and Southampton we have, you know, and so you've got the councillors, and really absolutely like dedicate ourselves for straight after COVID to bring these young people into play, to talk to them, sound them out, to see what help they need. They could have, you know, there must be some kind of loans that we can give. And, you know, even down to maybe like with VAT, to rather than people be bogged down with VAT, what's wrong with scrapping VAT and just having a good old fashioned purchase tax where everybody just pays 5%, everyone across the board. So forget the threshold, and that everybody just pays 5%, because people wouldn't miss 5%. Nobody would fiddle it, because what's the point if they're just paying 5%? And the inland revenue would actually get more money by doing that than what they would by employing all sorts of people to see who's fiddling their VAT. You know, politics and business doesn't have to be complicated. You know, it's simple, really, you know, and the simple solution to me is to get these young people, encourage them, and you know, I should imagine if you've done that, you'd probably get about 3 out of 10 that would actually move on and actually do something. And then the others, some of the others, they might want to be electricians or builders or carpenters, you know, really encourage the apprenticeships and encourage our local businesses to take the young people on.
Well, there's a lot of interesting proposals there. And when Charmaine gets a connection back, I'm going to ask her how she thinks they're floating in a city, Birmingham. I think she's back with us now. Charmaine, I don't know if you caught all of Kim's proposals there. He was talking about local councils pushing forward to try and get young people and people who are out of work into meetings, Guildhall events, things to try and push and encourage them into business, really. How do you think that might work in inner city Birmingham? Do you think that there would be a big uptake and interest in that kind of thing?
Firstly, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. I can't see you guys, so as long as you can hear me for now.
We can hear you loud and clear.
She's gone. Right, Jaz, I'm going to bounce this to you then. There was a talk there about VAT and purchase taxes as well, which I think is something that you might have some feelings on.
I think the issue is that we can have these ideas, but something as dramatic as that is not a 5-minute job to change VAT. I get the sentiment behind it, and I think it would be great. I think we need some quick wins. And I think when you talk about the Guildhall and you talk about city centres, and I know Southampton because I used to train down there, going back quite a while with HSBC, because we used to have a training centre down there, and it's a great city. But you know, if you look at high streets up and down the country, there's empty shops. Most of those shops are probably owned by property investors of some description. Most of them are not owned by the councils anymore. So I think the councils need to work with the people that own these empty shops to say, right, okay, how you need a tenant. We've got kids out there that need a platform of some description. How can we put all that together to make it try and work? Now, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I'm just saying that, you know, you've got an awful lot of empty shops out there. The guys that own them aren't making any money while they're not getting any rent. So if they can work with the councils, or the councils can find out who they are, because they must know them because they pay council tax rates, and somehow put some sort of program together. So, right, okay, in this high street, we're going to open up 5 shops. Who wants to come down and set up, set up a business of some description, or who needs help to set up a business? And we've got this facility here that we can take advantage of. You've got to think sort of differently. You know, it's a side of the business world that I'll be honest, I'm not greatly involved in. But I think we've got to think differently, and we've got to approach the kids in a different manner, because what we're doing right now, and I think Charmaine will sort of agree with this, is it's not working 100%, is it? You know, I know about apprentices because I get the emails from the LEPs and Black Country Chamber, etc., but an awful lot of business people don't.
Yeah.
I think
well, Charmaine's back with us now, so let's Charmaine, Charmaine, we can hear you and see you loud and clear. So we need to really ask how you think the impact of the ideas that Jaz and Kim have put forward about trying to encourage people to get into business through council intervention, through reaching out to people who wouldn't normally be involved in business. How effective do you think they'll be, and how would you go about that?
You know what? I think it would be effective if people are ready, and if the young people are ready for this. But there may be a step before that, which could be some educating around going into business, some educating around even aspiring to be in business. How do you run a business? And also we have to look that, you know, our younger generations now, they spend a lot of their life online. Is it viable for them to be in the shops at this stage? Is it something that I can sell how much from my bed? Do I have to get up in the morning really to go and open a shop and do that traditional slog of running a shop in the same way? I believe that there are young people out there that want to have that shop, that want to have that experience, and that could go for it right now. But I also believe that there are many who would be aspiring to do that, that need the stage before, and also the investment. How many of our young people understand are financial illiterate as well, to actually manage the financial side of running a business, the emotional side of running a business? I think there is a lot of elements that would need to be looked at and invested in. So that's from the education to the positive affirmation and promotion, and then to the support. There could be other businesses who could mentor some of these young people. They could maybe, you know, have an arm off it and target other young people. So I'm not saying that all of the suggestions that are put out there aren't realistic. I just don't think that it's going to suit everybody. And we cannot forget that there are the generations above the young people as well, who were these people's parents, who would love to be able to invest and support. But right now they're probably just looking at their finances to keep the roofs over their young people's heads and put food on the table. So I think in terms of that, the business world and national government and local authorities all need to look at this in a realistic fashion, that how can us as the whole of the UK, of all the generations, be using the spaces that are there, and also how can this new digital revolution that has been catapulted to a speed because of the times that we're in be actually balanced with the real life entering a shop? Because very rarely I see my daughter actually goes shopping in the sense of I would go shopping. I like to try and stuff. I want to see what I'm buying, where she's in that space where she'll just get it delivered. We have the delivery man near enough every day. He knows her name. He knows my neighbours. He knows everybody. and it's just convenient now. It's convenient to have everything brought to you, but it's the older generations and, you know, us who are the ones that like to go shopping, like to go out there, like to have that chat when we're buying stuff. And, you know, us as women, oh, that looks nice on you in the changing rooms. And, oh, I don't know you from Adam, but you look fantastic. But my thing is, how is that going to be brought back into our daily lives when we're still having to wear masks? Is there going to come the time when the social distancing will be eased? Will people believe the information that is going to be given to us when it does happen? So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the psyche of the customer and the shopper, but also in the psyche of our next generations as well, that this is a viable option. And if that isn't for you, then can you become an apprentice and work for this company with the aim of becoming that person who has that shop on the high street or has a different kind of service? So I believe it's all possible, and optimistic is definitely there, but I'm also a realist. Is the money there? Are people willing to put the money where their mouth is? And are those who are in control of this money when it's been handed down using it correctly and putting it in the right places and giving it to the people instead of the usual suspects?
Yeah. Okay, well, I want to put you in the hot seat then, Charmaine. Let's imagine that, yeah, okay, we come the end of June or whatever, and COVID, it's all off the table. We're just in that point of rebuilding, and the government and the media, as was mentioned by the guys, you know, gets off everyone's back, and we can get back to work. Now, Jaz mentioned something earlier, which I think is really important. He said we need some quick wins, because I think the answer that you gave earlier just now kind of implies that what Kim's trying to put forward might take a little while to happen. If you were in that hot seat and you were looking at somewhere like inner city Birmingham, and you were addressing people, you know, looking at the unemployment issues, the deprivation issues, everything that's going on right now in our inner cities, where would you put that investment? What would you do? What do you think would deliver us some quick wins to try and kickstart the economy and get people back confident and working again?
I think firstly what I would do would be targeting the young people that Kim is talking about, those who are ready and have been sitting in lockdown planning their business and what they're going to do, and, you know, have got that plan, because I'm sure that there are thousands out there that have done that, and really do a campaign to target those, to give them the incentive and the encouragement and that optimism as well. I think, Kim, you need to bottle your optimism and sell it as well, to really, you know, bring them to those spaces and make the transition from it being an idea into a reality that they can see, these spaces, how they're going to design it and what it's going to look like. So I would put together a positive engagement campaign and start targeting young people who may have, you know, those who may have done or finished their business degrees, who may have done their accounting, that may have done all these different things, and hold something that some of these people can come together and share their skills. So you might have your business and you've got your idea, but I'm an accountant. I can now do your accounting. I can create and design this that can sell in your shop. So it's like bringing all the pieces together so they see what the picture looks like. That's what I would do. I would also look at some of the organizations who are not as mainstream, that have been doing fantastic, you know, work right at grassroots, that know who these young people are, who have been doing it with no finance at all or no backing as well, and look to see how can I invest in you to invest in your networks and put in that message, that optimism, that finance there as well, and taking ideas out of the idea realm and bringing them into reality, and being able to recognize that, you know what, sometimes some of these ideas may not work, but that's okay, because that's a part of business. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, and blocked from ever trying anything new. You might have another idea that might work, even though this one might not have. So I think it would be a twofold thing. Target those who are ready and prepared to go, that have got their vision, got their plans all together, network them with some other young people with some other skills that can create the whole of the infrastructure for the business. And then at the same time, have some different elements and some campaigns and some apprentices and whatever else to start to get young people who are not that far away, and those who are, to start making those steps towards it as well. But in that, I wouldn't forget the generations above, because there are those who are above 30 who are just as passionate, who have business ideas, who want to make it a reality, who want to be on the high street. Many of us walk past the high streets and it's saddened to see them empty. So there's many of us that want to see them open as well. So I think it needs to be a fair balance, and we look at it from the different generations and what they need, and go for, really, really putting in the finances, the attention, the commitment, and the reality of risk in place to give these people the opportunity to succeed, and if they fail, to be able to re-enter with a different idea.
Yeah,
Well, before I come to our resident grumpy finance expert who might bring us down to earth, I'm going to go to Kim for some positive vibes. Kim, you've been, I can see you've been listening intently to Charmaine there. Sound realistic? Sound the kind of thing that you think we should be doing?
Listen, everything. I agree with everything that Charmaine just said. I can see a Wolverhampton, Birmingham, Southampton alliance coming on here at the end of the day, Bill. I mean, the main, it isn't about the money. It's the key word for me, for our young people, by actually encouraging them to do this and to believe in themselves, is self-esteem. That's what a lot of young people lack. If we can encourage them to work for themselves and do something, and to look forward to actually opening up the door to that shop, and to know they've got all the help and the backing behind them to actually thrive. Self-esteem, Bill, that's what it's about. It's about having pride in themselves and belief in themselves. And I honestly believe this can happen. And like Charmaine said, with these mentors that the council's done at the Guildhall, yes, you'd have accountants, you'd have people specialised in different fields that could take on a group of people that were going to open up shops. So they've got already they've got a backing and support of people behind them. So if they get a problem, they can go to those people for help and guidance. Bill, look, at the end of the day, John F. Kennedy once said, men see things as they are and say why. I dream things that never were and say why not. This is a fantastic opportunity, this COVID, for our young people, and not just young people, people in their 30s and 40s, if they want to get involved in business. If they haven't got a job and they haven't got much coming in, but they've got an idea, then encourage that idea, let them go with that idea, and give them whatever help and support that they need, because now is the opportunity to do that.
Well, it's been beautiful and positive. Now we come to Jaz. Now, I wonder whether or not you're going to rain on the parade, mate, or do you think that there's some viability to this this thinking?
I think there is some viability to it. I think we are treading down the route of retail to be the rescue point, and personally, I'm struggling a little bit with that, purely because I think the pace of retail is changing, whether we like it or not. Yes, I think there are opportunities for specialist kind of retail outlets, boutiques, call them what you will, that you can't get necessarily on on the internet, that people, as Charmaine wants to do, want to go out, touch, feel and buy. And I think there are those offerings, and that is out there. Whether that's the answer to the vast numbers of kids, young people and even middle-aged people that we've got out there that are currently either out of work or likely to be out of work once furlough ends, I'm not convinced retail is 100% the answer to all of that. So what I would say is that from a political point of view, as a country, we've spent an awful lot on furlough, correct? What if we, and so we've that, yes, we borrowed an awful lot of money to do that. but we've encouraged firms to retain employees and put them on furlough. So what if we flip that the other way? Because I'm thinking about the manufacturers, I'm thinking about the people that are involved in industry, I'm thinking about the people who are employing hundreds of people, thousands of people that can actually pick up that slack really quickly if they wanted to. So how do we get those larger employers, those 50 plus employers, to actually look to take people on? What incentives can the governments and local councils give to try and do that? To try and because not all kids want to be retailers, Kim. I appreciate that's a fantastic.
No, I didn't mean just retailers. To be fair. I mean, I'm on about starting up their own building business, or
might want to go to production, might want to be engineers. And as much as COVID, as you said, is an opportunity for these young kids. Do you know what? Now that we've done what we've done, now that we've left Europe, Brexit is actually a massive opportunity, because some of the manufacturers that I work with, we're seeing work coming back from China. We had a great example in a precision engineering company in Great Bar, where we'd lost work 3-4 years ago to China, and the guys who were buying this stuff had got into a process where, in their minds, without actually even checking, they were automatically ordering from China because they just assumed that it was going to be cheaper. And actually, when they came back to us to quote, we were actually cheaper and more environmentally friendly because we weren't shipping it halfway around the world. So how do we, we've got everybody on board with furlough, and that's been a fantastic success. How can we use that same methodology to encourage employment, to encourage growth, to encourage getting these kids into a different way of thinking? And all these people that are going to be made unemployed post-furlough, how can we re-engage them with industry, with manufacturing, and with all the other sectors that are out there that are also have suffered, but now have got an opportunity with Brexit, because we are there, we can't change that. So I think there's a lot of things that the government can do. It's what they need to do is engage with the business community. What they need to do is engage with the employers to say, right, we're going to have X number of unemployed people. How are you going to engage them? What are you going to do in your business? And how can we help to fund that, to do that? Now, there is some of that going on. We're working with Warwick University. We've reached out to the people that are managing HS2, and we're now starting to engage, but we've had to reach out. My point is that we as companies have had to reach out in order to get into the supply chain of HS2. They're not coming to us. Nobody's coming to us to say, would you like to be involved? And I think that's where we need to get into a process where actually we know the people, we know the companies, we know the sectors, we know the industries that are employing people. We need to reach out to them to say, right, what do you need? How do you want to grow your business? And how can you employ more people and get the economy thriving?
Yeah. And Jaz, to take us into another area here, which I want each of you now to cover this as briefly as possible, because before the end of the show, I want to come on to your sort of positive vibe for the future, your positive feeling that you're going to give us about what you're doing and what your plans are. I know Kim's going to have something he wants to mention. I'm sure everyone will. But Jaz, as you started this ball rolling, we're into macroeconomics here. We're into finance and fiscal issues. We've borrowed hundreds of billions of pounds. We're about over £1 trillion added to the national debt. That money's gone because it's gone on furlough. It's basically dead money now. Bear in mind, perhaps we need to try and bring the debt under control, but at the same time, we've got to stimulate growth, as you quite rightly said. Have you got? Is there one or two big things the government could do that would make, from your perspective, the economic near and immediate future look better?
That's a tough one, because the easiest answer would be to cut taxes. But does that really help? Because that's always the easy answer. Well, give people money and they'll be okay. I don't think that is the answer. I think, as I've just said, I think we need to somehow encourage industry sectors, businesses, to take people on and to bring on new ideas. So I think we need a sort of flip side of furlough, if you like, where we actually say to businesses, right, okay, you can have this resource at your disposal, and those guys, work with these guys to get to a point where actually then you want to employ them. because they've done such a good job, or they've taken your idea and they've built upon it, and suddenly we've got a new side to the business that we didn't have before, or we've expanded a piece of the business that we didn't have before. And you're going to get most of those ideas from industry. You're not going to get them from politicians, because politicians aren't entrepreneurs. That's not what they do. They don't create. So we need to go to the business community actually and ask the business community, what can we do to help you to grow? What can we do to help you to take on more staff, more employment, make the local economy better, and drive it through? And that's the only way you're going to do that, is approach businesses to do it. The answers, unfortunately, I don't believe are going to come from the politicians.
But can I step in?
Yeah, Kim, I'm going to come to you. I just want to frame it for you a little bit, Kim. You're the Chancellor. The budget's coming up very soon. You've got to do something big. You've got to do something to kickstart the economy. Thoughts? Massively.
Cut the VAT from 20% and turn it into a purchase tax of 5%. A level playing field for everyone, and that's even down to Amazon and the corporates that don't really seem to pay much money, and that whatever their turnover is, it's 5% on top. They've got to pay the 5%, the same as everyone. Have a level playing field for everyone at 5%, because 5% isn't going to, it's £5 out of £100. It isn't going to kill any of us. As a 20%, it creates a problem where you've got people that haven't got the threshold level, so they sell stuff, they can sell it cheaper because other people that are playing the game and they're paying the VAT, they haven't got a chance. It's just have a purchase tax. I mean, it's quite simple, and it's going to be easier to collect, and they don't have to spend loads of money on employing people to try and catch people out, because at 5%, people are not even going to bother to try and fiddle it. And that would be my radical solution.
Tax simplification, always a nice one, but always one that. It's always one that brings a few issues with people in Jaz's line of work, but we haven't got time to go into that at the moment.
But the other thing, sorry.
Yeah, go on, mate.
The other thing I'd like to mention, because of this, the COVID situation and what it's shown. I mean, it's shown. I mean, look how quickly that Oxford senator got this vaccine within a year. I mean, Bill, that was fantastic. To actually produce that vaccine in 1 year, up against all odds, and whether people are conspiracists or whether they believe in it, whether they don't believe in it, the fact is they've done it. And
so motivated people, Kim, motivated people.
Yeah, so, but again, my idea,
Jaz, come back to industry, motivate industry, and you'll win. Motivate manufacturing, and you'll win.
Yeah,
they were motivated.
Back to the medical,
they were motivated to create that vaccine, weren't they? And
they
did it. So,
so motivation is the key word.
To create industry and create wealth, they'll do it, but you need to motivate them.
Even though the Germans don't seem too keen on taking it, but that's another matter. But, Kim, I'm going to give you a big say. I'm going to give you a big say at the end of this, because I know you've got a project you want to talk about. So I'm just going to go to Charmaine, and then we're going to come back to you, and you can talk about your project. Charmaine, you're the Chancellor. It's the budget coming up soon. What would you do? What would your big idea be? I think we may have lost Charmaine, which is a shame, because I think it would have been a good idea, I'm sure. Okay, I'm going to go back to Kim, and he can tell us about his project, because we're coming into the final few minutes of the show. And I think we've got a bit of leeway because we've had some technical issues. But Kim, big idea. Give us a couple of minutes on it.
Bill, the big idea is that, I'm going back to the boxing, Bill. I've had a word with John Rhys Evans. I double-checked it. And I'm challenging you to fight me on top of Kilimanjaro. John Rhys Evans does these tours. Now, no one's ever fought that high. We were both out of breath last time, and my God, we're both going to be out of breath up there, and I might even have a bit of a chance this time. And if we do it for charity, Bill, do you know what? That could be in the realms. We could raise millions. Now, did you see Lou Macari? Those places he's producing for the homeless. They're like rolling wagons, but without the wheels. They're fantastic. Do you know what? We could make enough money from that fight to produce enough of those homes for Birmingham, Wolverhampton, and Southampton. So Bill, take me up on it.
It sounds great, mate. As long as you can get the air ambulance to get me back down because of climbing the heights, and I'm starting to doubt myself. I obviously
Yeah,
didn't punch you hard enough last time. You want to fight me again? This is bad for my ego. But well look, mate. That is something that I'm sure we can take on
good.
and look at, and I'm quite happy if we've got the finance to do it, and I'm sure we can promote it through this show. But
Brilliant. Now, Bill,
we'll talk more on it.
on another note, on COVID,
Yep.
Bill, would it be easier with I look at looking at Oxford Senator being motivated? Now, what about if we took back if I were Chancellor, take back the National Lottery? Because the clue is in the name, national. At the end of the day, most of that money goes to Canadian pension funds. Now, if we brought that Camelot back under government control and it was nationalised, then that money, we could build our own laboratories, we could pay top scientists, and then and build our own factories with that money, and with everything that's produced would be free at the point of delivery for everyone. So there would be no such thing, because at the moment, drug companies find a cure for a certain type of cancer or something, or medication that can help. And people can't afford it because they've only got a 2-year window to get as much money back in as they can. But if we took back the Camelot, and we used the National Lottery money to produce this, like they've just done with Oxford Senator. I mean, what a fantastic thing to do, Bill. I mean, surely that's got to be looked at. I don't understand why no one's ever looked at that.
Interesting idea. Thank you, Kim. Now, we've got Charmaine back. You missed out on the big question earlier, Charmaine. Now, I'm going to put you on the hot spot. You're the Chancellor. The budget is coming up. What are your one or two, very quick, being able to quickly sum them up, ideas that you're going to put in that budget that will get this country going again, get us back in work, get us all feeling good? What are you going to put in the budget?
Well, firstly, I think I would put in the budget definitely something around Jaz's idea around, encouraging business and looking at ways to forward them employing more people, creating more jobs. I also think as well that I would put something in the budget around wider conversations happening with industry, with young people, with other people who are interested in creative as well, and be part of our country as well. And I wouldn't forget all of those who may not be entrepreneurs, but are also going to be those who are going to be employed in this, and looking at how we actually treat our employees and how we move forward in a way that we know that everybody's going to need a little bit extra to get us really on track. So I would be having money in industry, but also money in dialogue between industry, the employers, the future employers, and our future entrepreneurs, and seeing what ideas collectively we can all bring to the table, and also have a stake in it and take some collective responsibility for how we move forward in the UK.
Okay. And whilst we've got you without the technical issues, give us your 30 seconds. Good vibe, good thing, good project. What's going on? Tell us something that we can be, even if it's about your show. Tell us something good that the viewers can think. Yeah, Charmaine's got something good going on.
Well, currently on my show, we are Birmingham focused, or should I say West Midlands focused, because we're a part of the region now, with having our mayors as well. So we are looking at, what are the roles of some of our cabinet members. We've previously looked at, what do our candidates for the West Midlands Police Crime Commissioner and also the mayor have to offer us as well. We've got a couple of hostings in the making with a society that I'm a part of, the Lunar Society, and I'm very optimistic because I've had to come through some battles on a personal level through this climate, and it's made me have to take chances and do things that I'd thought about but never really had to do because I had other equipment around or whatever else. So I think for me, tune into the show, follow me at different angles and find out more. But I think take this opportunity to do things that you wouldn't normally do, because if there's ever a time where there's a lot more compassion, it's now. Do what you need to do now while the climate is ready for you to do it. Do not miss this window.
Brilliant.
And that's it from me.
Now, Jaz, over to you. You got your last sort of 30 seconds to a minute. Something positive, something a good vibe you can see us out on.
Well, two things. Number one, I'm going to seek out Charmaine's show and have a listen because I think that sounds fantastic. And I think number two, help. I think everybody can be a little bit more kinder, a little bit more helpful, and a little bit more generous. We, together with a few companies, we gave out over 120 odd laptops, iPads to kids. And what we did, we found local schools up and asked the headmaster, what help do you need? What do you need? And we actually had a headmaster crying down the phone. They were that pleased that somebody picked up the phone to them to help. So even people that you think, aren't necessarily don't need any help, people do. So, ask the question, do what we can, and let's all just get through this because it's going to be another tough few months yet before we're through this. And I think the more charitable we are, the more generous we are with each other, it's just got to pay dividends.
Great stuff. Right, I'm very sorry to say this because I've enjoyed myself, and thank you for battling the technical issues and things like that, guys. But the show has come to the end of our time, so I want to say thank you very much to Charmaine Burton from different angles. Charmaine does a great show. Do seek her out, as Jaz said. Do listen to her. She does a brilliant show. Thank you, Charmaine. Kim Rose, thank you so much, mate, for coming on the show and
You're welcome.
for all
Thank
of
you
the
for
positive
inviting me.
energy that you've given. I think
Can I
everyone
just say
watching
one
will
thing,
feel
Bill?
buzzing.
Can I say one thing
it's been
before
a
I
pleasure.
go? Charmaine is selling herself short because I looked on Facebook and I watched that girl sing. I'm telling you, that girl's got a voice. She can sing. And Charmaine, I'm taking this opportunity. I want to be your agent.
I'd take him up on it, Charmaine. Definitely. Now, and finally, Jaz Khunkun, I don't think you can sing, Jaz. I'm not sure about that, but thanks for coming on the show, mate. It's been a pleasure. We've been friends for a very, very long time. Although I look a lot older than you do, but we've been since school days, so it's been a pleasure to have you on, mate.
Thanks for having me. Well done, guys.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
This has
Bye.
been Head to Heads, and it's been an Open Dialogus production. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye.